So you're miserable and your life sucks. Great. Glad to find you here. Let's talk about it. There's likely far too many things to list that are contributing to the fact that you're feeling like this, such as the state of the world. Let's just not even go there. Let's ignore that, shall we? Knowing too much or being aware of too much can be really overwhelming and have the complete opposite effect. Rather than prompting you into action, it kind of has that effect of freezing you and making you feel really useless because there's nothing you can really do about everything that's going on around you that's making life hell, right? So I wanted to not talk about that specifically, but rather framing it this way. You can't really control what's outside of you. What you're only able to control is yourself and what goes inside of you, your reaction to things. That's easier said than done, I know. You would be surprised to know that actually that makes the change externally, meaning when you focus on yourself and trying to cultivate whatever it is that you want to see flourish will eventually reflect back in the external outside world. Obviously there is levels to that, but this is what this video is about. Put quite simply, I'm going to reduce all your problems, and perhaps this resonates with you, and if it doesn't, this is not your video, bye. But this might resonate for some people, and this is for you, okay? You are really unhappy because you're not creating. I'm going to say that again. You're not happy because you're not creating. This problem has become widespread and worse, I believe, considering that with the advancement of technology and social media, which is now something that is a big part of most people's everydays and their lives, a lot of what they do revolves around this concept of social media and the extension of oneself onto the internet and the platforms that people tend to use nowadays, that are popularly used. How stupid does this sound, really? But that's the reality of it. And I could go on about how those apps and those platforms affect you and your self-esteem, and partly this video does have a lot to do with that. But I just want to focus on you. I want to focus on you and where you're at right now and how you're feeling, right? Because we could talk about how comparison, which it does have a lot to do with this, but comparison because of what you see that people put up, how does that make you feel compared to your life? That's also a huge part. But I want to emphasize how your role as a consumer is what's making you unhappy. You are at the mercy of big corporations that sort of stir the ship of what's next in the consumerism wheel. Perhaps you believe that you're exempt from this, but to some extent you're still being influenced, and funny enough, your life is being dictated by these things around you that may not be so obvious as I'm trying to explain them. But becoming conscious of this is a first step to having some agency over what's going on in your life and how you feel about it. Perhaps you have ideas and aspirations that you one day may like to achieve. Perhaps you have ideas of what you would like based on what you've seen other people accomplish or the way that they live their lives and how that's portrayed, which is false advertisement in a way. Hopefully you do have some desires of your own and they're not heavily influenced by somebody else having it. And so you have your desires, but then you lack self-belief, which is a key component of everything that happens in your life. Belief is everything, and I can talk about that in another video. But in this video, we're focusing on creation. You're pretty much miserable because on some subconscious level, you recognize that you're being used as a consumer, and you're playing this role of a consumer constantly. You consume endless, pointless audiovisual media that keeps you using these different platforms, which is great. Some people call it brain rot. There's an overconsumption of media, pointless media, or even media that you think, okay, that media is motivational, but it perpetuates this procrastination wheel from creation. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is you're miserable because you're not creating, whatever that is, in whatever capacity that can be for you. You're playing a role of a consumer when that's not your God-given right. Your God-given right is to create without adhering to any sort of religion, and just taking the example of those scriptures that say man was made in God's image. I believe that is true. If you consider God as the creator or the prime creator, and you're made in its image, your God-given right is to create. Furthermore, anything you see around you, to the clothes that you're wearing, the items, things, everything around you, the chair that I'm sitting on was first a thought, and it's man-made, and it's created by man. The house that you live in, the car that you may drive, the bike that you may drive, right? Anything and everything around you except for yourself, you created, well, not you, but man was first a thought. And this is part of what I would like to teach you on how things work. It doesn't really matter how you fulfill that creative urge. It doesn't have to be you creating an object. It doesn't mean you have to create art. It doesn't mean you have to create videos. It simply means that you become the creator, the creative force around your life. You can just be able to create your life. But in order to be able to do that, for you to be able to create your desired life, you have to take control over your thoughts. And as you can imagine, that's terribly hard. That's terribly hard. And that's why you should consider mindless media and entertainment your arch nemesis. Because it's the sole reason, well, not sole reason, it's a huge reason why in this day and age, it's really hard. It's really hard to consciously create certain things, or it takes longer or more effort. Your energy, attention, and your focus is your currency in this life. I'm going to say that again. This is why I always say your attention, your energy, and your focus is your currency in this life. Knowing that, you can imagine how poor you may be and how miserable that may make you. How miserable you may be if your screen time on your phone is 5 hours, right? 5 hours of your life that you could be spending on actually creating something. Perhaps you should put this to the test and have one day starting now where you reflect on any time that you catch yourself doing something. Ask yourself, am I creating or am I consuming right now? And there's nothing wrong with consuming. There's nothing wrong with entertainment. There's nothing wrong with giving yourself a little escape by watching TikToks or Reels. Nothing wrong with that. But who is in control of how much and when you do that? Because it's not you. So no wonder you would feel miserable and unhappy. It's as if you, instead of being able to live your life and choose the things that you want to do, you were a slave to being controlled on what to think and what you're doing, and perhaps being tied down to a chair and told you need to watch what we're putting on a screen and you have to stay here and you can't do anything. And it kind of is like that, although you're under the false premise that you are choosing to do that. But how many of you may have gone on your phone to do something, seen a notification, gone on an app, ended up watching videos non-stop, and then even forgot what you were going to do on your phone in the first place? Who's in control? Who's controlling you? Let me not get started on the social media addiction that's that's hindering so many people. So you're unhappy because you're not in control of your own life. And I know it may not be as easy as one would think to be in control of one's thoughts. That's why practices such as meditation are so important, because it's in the space that you enter when you meditate in which you can be more of an observer of these thoughts and your life. And in general, it's as if you get a bird's eye view of what's going on around you, and you're able to manipulate things from that standpoint, and you're able to create more easily. You are unhappy because you're not creating. Some say life is this never ending cycle, this wheel that won't stop turning, that sort of entraps you in it. And I believe that the distractions that exist, that are put in place in this reality to do so, are also ever changing and evolving. Now, in this day and age, is social media and entertainment and media and the devices that you have right in the palm of your hand. Are you really controlled by a machine? Or can you control the machine that is you? If you like to be able to control the machine that is you, I'll be making videos about that and explaining how the machine that is you works. Let me know what you think.